Today I've got another assortment of trains, locomotives primarily. We're going to see how they work, if they run at all. This mostly came from an eBay pile that I got, but a couple are from my childhood still. So the first thing I've got here is this Amtrak. It sounds a little noisy. This is an Athearn. So this is an Athearn AA. So I've got an A powered and an A dummy. And these were made in China. These weren't the actual Athearns that were made in the United States, although they look the same. They aren't. These are after Athearn moved out of town, and they're a little cruddy. So I've got this Trix HO wheel cleaner. You can take a piece of paper towel and put some rail cleaner on it or alcohol and put it on the rails and then just hold the engine and let it spin out on it, which is one of the tricks I used to do. When Athearn moved a lot of their stuff to China, and this is true with most of the toys, the detailing became a little bit more precise. So these have window glass in it, whereas the older Athearns didn't. But this is a Amtrak A-powered A-dummy. I have two of these John Deere train sets, and they're both the second in a series. John Deere came out in the mid-90s. These were still made in the United States at first, at least 1998. Was this set. I think the first set came in 1997, and they probably went to 2006 or 7. I think they had maybe one steam locomotive, but primarily they were different diesels. And these were sold at John Deere dealerships. They didn't come with track or a transformer typically. They would have another box that looked like this. They would say John Deere HO starter set, and that starter set would be some Bachmann Easy Track and I think Athearn actually did have some transformers at one time, but second in the series. And what was in that train set was an A unit, a B unit, you had a hopper, and you had a flat car. This one's got pewter John Deere D's on it, and then you had a caboose. So these were pretty standard Athearn train cars, and these did have the knuckle couplers on it, so they had the better couplers. And I think they had plastic wheels. So we'll take one of these Athearns here. And so I've got this hopper here out of this other set, and I put Bachmann metal wheels on it. These are 33-inch wheels, and I put some Katie's on it. This one was broken. The hooks were broken. So I've got a little bit of a trip problem. We can fix that with these pliers. And these are Katie pliers, but they can be bought at Michael's or something, in the section where they sell jewelry making tools. So you can see what my problem is this trip pin is catching right there on the crossing, so you can carefully, you don't want to break the spring off, but you can carefully squeeze. And what that does is that bends the trip pin back up around. There are other ways to do this without using these, but this works pretty well. That you would have gotten at the John Deere dealers in 1998, and these retailed back then. So this is 25 years ago. These were over $100. And like I said, these were made in the United States at the time. This right here was a 060 Bachmann that I got as a teenager. I remember getting this at Woolworths. I think it cost me about 40 bucks. I've updated the trucks on it with steel. Still goes like I just bought it. Usually they would have a smoke box that would puff smoke, and I don't remember if this one worked or not. It feels like, to me, the Bachmann ones that would blow smoke eventually, they just quit working for whatever reason. And this one in here is a Tyco 060. It's pretty much the same engine with a different tender. That's an oil tender. This is a long haul tender. And Tyco Mantua the same. I did put new wheels on it and a knuckle coupler. These Tycos, I think they were kind of a cheap engine. People got them, and the problem with these engines is they didn't have a lot of pickup on them. So they only had whatever the drivers were generally, and they didn't have a lot of weight to them. So when you get into like these boards on the crossings, they would stall, and I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen here. So they would run pretty good on the main line, but as soon as you got to something like this where it would lift up just enough to lose contact, you'd have troubles. Yep, and they smell like they always did. Smelled like a engine burning. The next train I have is this Western Pacific Consolidation IHC. I believe that IHC, AHM, Tyco kind of shared at least blueprints, if nothing else. Now this is one of those ones I was telling you about before that has the drawbar that comes unhooked, and if you aren't careful you can have a lot of trouble. So this is a beautiful train, the 280 Consolidation. These had smaller drivers than the Americans. The Americans were for speed and these were for pulling. So you'd mostly see these on freight, and by the 30s they were only on like second class railroads, class 2s. They weren't really on class 1s. And you might still see them today on like heritage railroads, but a lot of them got junked. So that's a really nice one. The front of the boilers on these sometimes had issues like that. So I'll have to come back and glue that later. Moving along, this is an IHC 440 American, and it should have tender pickup, but whether it works or not remains to be seen. It should be making those drivers go, but they're not going. So I've got pickup on the drivers, nothing on the tender, which that's wrong. And the pilot says nothing, so I'm not sure what's going on here. I got plenty of power as soon as I take the tender off, but I put the tender on and kills it. The first two are fine. So there's a short or something with the back. So this is a Bachmann non-DCC GP. That's a pretty smooth runner. So no problems with that one. Yeah, it's sacrilegious. I'm putting it in an Athearn box. Next we have is a Bachmann. It's a U18 or U23 or something like that. This is the Conrail. It's a smooth runner too. No trouble with that one. Here's a Bangor and Aristic F7A. This is an Athearn. Bachmann sets, and this came with a lot of them. Barack Obama, 2008. Now these Hawthorne sets, you could have gotten this with whether it's the New England Patriots or Barack Obama or John Deere or Farmall or whatever. They had this whole sales deal, and you'd buy the locomotive and you'd get the B unit, and then you'd start getting passenger cars or whatever, and then they'd send you a track and a power pack like this at some point. It was quite a racket. I don't know when it ever stopped, but they would charge you a lot of money for the stuff. So it's a really smooth running train, and I think this would be kind of neat on a layout. During election years, they would take the vinyl and wrap the buses or whatever with the election, with all the election propaganda. Now this right here was the one that I was telling you about earlier. My siblings bought me this, and I was probably 12 or 13. Norfolk Southern, it's GP38. don't expect to have any trouble with this one, because this one was one of mine that I've always had. This one here is a DCC. We'll try that one. And then I've got a Boston and Maine F unit A Athearn, missing the couplers on it. So no trouble there. This GP38 or GP40 Bachmann DCC locomotive. That's a nice smooth runner too. So no trouble there. Well, I guess that's about it. I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.